Watch Symposium. I'm Austin, and this is the second custom video for Robin. We're checking out his collection. If you haven't seen video 1, link in the description. We looked at his chronograph, his Breguet, and his 39mm OP. And he has a little note about that OP, by the way, and it's kind of interesting. He says, the laser etch on the crystal is at the 21-minute mark. I mention this because I spent a lot of time looking for it at the 30. So if you don't see it, keep looking. Very interesting. So they turn the crystal around, which that would never happen on a date watch, but it did with this no date watch. Not a big deal. I mean, I guess you could say there's a quality control issue, but who cares whether it's the crystal is turned the right way or not. Kind of interesting, kind of unique. Huh. I wonder if Rolex did that, or I wonder if third party, I don't know, maybe Rolex. But anyway, when you have that watch serviced, I would maybe mention that to them so they can get it in right when they put it back together. All right, so looking at watch number 3. All right, this is pretty heavy duty. Blue Sky Dweller reference 326934. This is my other contemporary watch, along with that 39mm OP, which I guess is not so contemporary because it's discontinued. Bought unworn from a non-authorized dealer. He sold the bluesy, which was a 2015 ceramic bluesy that he got from an authorized dealer. He sold that for what I originally paid to cover the premium of this watch. I have a 7.5-inch wrist and I can carry it off. And he's talking about it because the Sky Dweller is a big watch. It's basically a date just on steroids with a GMT function and a month indicator. All right, it's a very clever watch. For me, it's a little bit too big. I wish they would bring it in to 40 or even smaller. Some people might think that's a bad idea, but it's just a little bit too big for me personally. But for him, again, we're talking personal preference really, and the difference between 40 and 42 millimeters, that's probably not much, right? So he's got the blue dial, that's the most desirable, and he bought this on the gray market. So he paid the premium, and that premium was from selling his bluesy, his ceramic bluesy. Was that a good move? I don't think you should sell any Rolex watch, okay? So maybe not, but it's done, whatever. And the interesting thing is, if he could go back and do it again, would he sell that 2015 brand new unpolished box and papers straight from the AD ceramic bluesy or not? Look, you can't keep everything sometimes, right? And so if it means getting this watch, and if it meant getting this watch, and he was willing to make that sacrifice, then it was the right move. It's only for him to decide if that was actually the right move. I can just say that I probably wouldn't have done it, but then I wouldn't be paying premiums for these watches anyway. So it's all about how much you want these watches, what you're willing to pay, what you're willing to give up, and I guess he's willing, or was willing, to give up more for that watch. He says, I will catch some hate from buying it on the gray market. Maybe, maybe not. Like I said, if you want the watch and you got the money, it's your choice. You might catch hate for selling the bluesy, okay? So maybe hate might come that way. I'm not giving you hate, but I'm just kind of saying, I don't know if I would have done it, okay? But again, it's a personal preference, so I'm not judging you, but I'm just saying I probably wouldn't have done it. LA is full of heavy hitters and celebrities. I guess that's where he is, LA. Do I want to spend $50K, $75K, or more to get on the 80s list? No. And he brings up a good point. I mean, look, if you just want the watch, the blue Sky Dweller, well, you can play all those games and buy a bunch of jewelry and this and that and other watches you don't really want, and at the end of it, you might spend 50 or 75,000 USD, and then you get to buy your Sky Dweller at retail. And I guess if it's just sort of a one and done and like an exception, it kind of makes sense. I guess ideally you could buy lesser models, two-tone models with diamonds, buy $75,000 worth of those watches and maybe sell them at a loss or break even. If here in Japan those models become unobtainable as well, and you were to get some now, in order to get and establish a good relationship with the authorized dealer, you hold on to them for a while. I guess it's possible that you wouldn't be able to find those watches anymore. They would go up enough that you could break even on them. Would you ever be able to make money? Maybe, but I would just, look to break even on those. But again, that's quite an experiment, and it would take $50,000 to $75,000, and you might be stuck with those precious metal two-tone diamond dial watches. I wouldn't want to be stuck with those, and I really wouldn't want to sell at a loss, even if it's a small loss. So, yeah, all right, there you go. So I guess it can make sense to pay the premium. Again, you got the money, you just want the freaking watch? Okay. All right, so he says, how long will I wait to get the call? What is the allocation? Just pay the premium and enjoy the watch. I will get my money back if I want to sell. Yeah, and that's a good way to look at it. And look, I often bring up premiums because we often look at premiums as the ceiling, right? But they're actually not. I mean, I looked at a current BLNR for $16,000. That wasn't the ceiling. They went up. Now they're selling for over 20 here in Japan. And so your premium actually might seem downright cheap if in the future they discontinue that blue dial Sky Dweller. So that's an interesting thing, and we often don't really talk about that. We often, again, as I said, we look at premiums as it's at the ceiling, it's going to get cheaper, just wait. Not always, not with Rolex watches. I mean, look at the Daytona. We thought that when that started selling over retail, just wait. I mean, it's at the highest point. It just kept going up, and I think it keeps going up. And again, if they change the Daytona and that white dial is discontinued, it's going to shoot up even more. So that premium that you paid might seem like peanuts in the future. This could have been actually a good move. We've hit the point where paying premiums on these watches might in the future be like the best thing you did. Crazy. This is my fuck off watch. I live in the capital of fuck off watches, LA. All right, man, LA, the soup, as Johnny Depp calls it. Yes, it's big, and like most Rolexes, looks so much better in person. It also has an ingenious method of setting the time, date, month, and second time zone. Yeah, and that's a Rolex first, the Command Bezel. And that came out in 2014, I want to say, and it was another Rolex first, so that's really cool, the Command Bezel. You can see how it works over on the Rolex website. It's fun to do, and I like that the famous fluted bezel is involved in the process. Has Rolex achieved high horology here? That's a good question. Some people would say without a display case back in that utilitarian movement, no. But they've definitely achieved something. High horology, probably not. It's certainly clever and doesn't require an extra crown or a stylus to push buttons on the case. Man, you bring up such a good point, Robin, and that's something that we really don't talk about and we don't think about. There's so many things going on with that watch. The month, the date, the GMT hand, and there's nothing but a crown. No little warts on the side to deal with it, just that crown. But the secret's in the bezel, right? That Command Bezel. So that is really cool, and it's awesome that you sort of brought that to our attention, Robin, because it's something that I think I kind of gloss over. It's something I don't really appreciate. And it's something that we wouldn't appreciate if you're not setting it. And of course you are setting it, so you realize how cool it is. The downside is that it's hard to miss, so you have to be aware of your surroundings. So I think he might be talking about, banging the watch, and you have to be careful about that. I mean, it's a big watch. It's probably a thicker watch. My guess is that it sits higher than your typical Rolex watch, but I can't say for sure. It doesn't have crown guards, and that is a white gold fluted bezel, and it's not like, it's just decoration. I mean, it has a function and a movability, and so I guess a good whack could affect that. So yeah, I imagine you have to be sort of careful with that watch. Par for the course. He says, I realized that the GMT function is my favorite complication, so that determined the next 3 watches, which I think of as siblings. And yeah, like I said, it's a date just on steroids with a GMT and a month function. And there are other GMT watches, the GMT Master 2 and the Explorer 2. They're more working men's watches. I mean, not these days, but I guess they were working men watches. You've got your pilot watch and you've got your, your adventurer's watch for in the field. And this is the GMT answer to the wealthy world traveler. So he's the guy in the back of the plane in the first class wearing that watch, whereas the guy flying the plane is going to be wearing his GMT, right? And they're flying by Mount Everest, and the guy on the Mount Everest is wearing the Explorer 2. All right, so that's the persona of these watches. Perfect for LA, right? Anybody that knows that watch knows it's an awesome, heavy-hitting watch, and the people that don't really probably don't need to be looking at your watch anyway. And there you go. This is the end of part 2, and we're going to continue it in part 3 and talk about these GMT siblings. All right, so in this video, we've looked at his F-off piece, and he's got his subtle 3-hander with the OP. He's got his chronograph, also subtle. He's got his F-off watch for all those cunty LA types, right? And it set him on the path to more GMT watches, and that's what we're going to talk about in part 3. Thank you, Robin. Guys, drop a comment in the comment section. What do you think about the Sky Dweller? Was he right to pay a premium for it? I think he might have been. And it really all depends on the future of that watch. I can't imagine it getting cheaper. If something changes, it's just going to make it go up, and I don't see prices faltering at all. So I think it might have, at the end of the day, been a good move. And in 10 years, he, like I said, might look back and think, man, I'm so glad I did that. The question is, was it worth the cost of that 2015 Bluesy? And only Robin can answer that. Thanks for watching. Take care. See you in part 3.